The following is a presentation of Project Independence and WCWP. Project Independence is the Aging in Place initiative of the town of North Hempstead.
Welcome to Project Independence and You.
Good morning and welcome to Community Talk Radio. This is Project Independence and You on LIU Public Radio. I'm your host and producer, Kristina Liu, along with my co-host, Paula Ewell and Otto Los. Paula and I, of course, work together at the Town of North Hempstead Services for the Aging, where Paula is the Deputy Commissioner and I'm the Director of Senior Citizen Affairs. It's quite a mouthful. And of course, Otto Los, what can I say? Every week I try to find another word to describe him, but he's longtime volunteer, supporter, and of course, friend of Project Independence and man on the street, you know?
Always great to
Man on the street of these North Hempstead streets. But this morning we are joined by Mariel Hunerberg, who is the Director of Speech Therapy at Metro Physical and Aquatic Therapy. And today we're talking about meditation and mindfulness, how it helps in speech therapy, which is so interesting. That's what I said. And I have to just
so excited
say
today
to Mariel, she's been on the show before, and I talk about one of my favorite topics that you had, which was like the dual task. And I really think that it's so beneficial and it comes up in conversation all the time. So when I reach out to Mariel, I said, we'd love to have back on. And she's like, came up with this topic. And I said,
Great.
Sounds great. Cause we're very big on mindfulness on the show.
Good. Love.
So welcome back to the show, Mariel. So let's just go to the basics. You know, of course, you have both meditation and mindfulness. And I think it's what's the difference? How do they work together? So
yeah, good question. So it's a big difference, and the terms are also used interchangeably, but we talk a lot about it, and so many people say, I can't meditate, right? How many times have you said it yourself?
I've said that.
Oh, then full disclosure, I've said that.
I've said it, and I teach meditation. You know, it's hard. It's not easy. But the thing about mindfulness is that meditation is more of a practice. So it's something that we can, and you know, it's a quiet environment. You're sitting down, you're really practicing it. But mindfulness is something that we can do all the time. It's accessible to everyone, no matter how busy your life is, no matter how much you think you're in your own head or can't get out of your own head. So mindfulness is something that you could do, something we do every day. We all brush our teeth, right? We do it every day. We just do it. So while we're brushing our teeth, thinking about, what does my toothpaste taste like? What do these bristles feel like? Do I need to replace these? You know, all these little things about just bringing your awareness into what you're doing instead of thinking about, what was that embarrassing thing I said yesterday? What am I making for dinner? What am I buying for the holidays? So mindfulness is just pulling yourself into that moment. And it's just so important.
So we should be focusing on what you were saying.
Exactly, not thinking about your lunch.
I get it.
Yeah. And it's something that we just have to practice all the time because our mind wants to wander, and that's just how we are as human beings and human nature, that it wanders. So kind of pulling it back and really being mindful in everything that we do. And that's could be for everything. Standing in line at the grocery store. You know, one really good way that I love to kind of bring it in is bringing your awareness to your body and where your body is kind of in space. So if you're standing in line at the grocery store and you're annoyed that the line is long and you forgot something, are my feet touching the floor? Can I just think about how that contact is being made? You know, you notice your posture will change a little bit. Your breathing might change a little bit. Bringing that mindfulness, that present, living in the present is really what it is.
See, I used to want long lines like in the Navy. You'd have a long line. And the way I got through the long lines I would look behind me and say, I've made progress. There's still a lot of people behind me.
Right.
So I'm moving up.
Yeah.
But that's not quite mindfulness, but I'm tricking my mind.
It's because you're mindful about what you're actually doing and you're right there and now you're here, you know? It's that our mind just always wanders. I think they did a study that was they kind of texted people where they were out and about their regular day, and they asked them a few questions, and they said, what are you doing right now? What are you thinking about right now? And are you happy right now? And all of this research and all of the information that they got from this study was that 47% of the time, we are not aware of what we're doing in the moment. We're somewhere else. Yeah, probably.
That's a low number right now.
Yeah.
That's low.
No, right.
Absolutely. And it's a huge number. And there's been so much research that all of these, you know, thoughts about not being in the moment and really having your mind wander are really associated with depression and loneliness and all these other things that we really try to avoid because we get in this kind of negative thought cycle, right? Sometimes when we're stuck in that.
Right.
Complicated, you know, because I don't think we realize that we're not where we are, if you will, sometimes. You know, maybe you're driving a car
You're like, how did I
as
get
a
there?
very good
Right.
example.
Absolutely.
That's the first thing that popped in my head, Otto,
Yeah.
when because it was, I mean, I
Yeah.
think we've certainly all been there. Like, how did we
Yeah.
get here? Yeah.
Well, we talk about distracted driving. To me, podcasts and I was there listening to a lot of stuff. But when you're doing that, you're really not totally mindful about driving.
Mhm.
You're mindful about what you're
Right.
hearing.
Mhm.
We talk about texting and whatnot, listening to things, and your mind is no longer really on what's in front of you. It's on what you hear. I think it's a big distraction,
Of course. Yeah.
And
It's
now
scary.
we've got screens
Oh,
that
yeah.
are,
Much more
which I
complicated now.
use,
Yeah.
but they're a distraction.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of
Well, I think, in the terms of
taking you from
technology,
mindfulness of driving the car.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. When you're walking, Pete, you hear stories of people falling into manholes
Right,
because
they're
they're
looking
listening,
there,
or they're
right.
looking, or they're listening
Yeah.
to something, and they're not paying attention either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I think it's hard because I laugh. I always say to my mom, and sorry, I put Barbara on blast. But we make fun of her because we call her a Gen Z all the time because all of a sudden she'll always be on her phone. And we'll be like, Mom, like, she'll be like, you'll be talking to her and she'll just like pick it up. But my mom's like a very anxious person too. And she's not even realizing, so I think, having these phones where they're so great, it's wonderful to have like this connectivity. It can really take you out of the present moment, certainly.
Yeah.
And I think that adds like another layer now because we're all just so indoctrinated with
Yep.
these phones and
Yep.
computers all the time. So
You bring up anxiety, and sometimes we use our phones as an escape.
Yeah,
If we're
right.
feeling anxious, or
Exactly.
we're feeling something, that we're grabbing our phone because it's a comfort.
Right.
Even for myself, I love Instagram. I
Yeah,
do. I'm scrolling.
of
what
course.
else? I don't know.
Yeah.
Mindfulness,
Right.
right? The opposite.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
deleted it for a while.
Yeah.
I recognized if I was feeling anxious or upset about something, I was going to grab my phone
Yeah.
for that, and I didn't realize it until I had removed
Yeah.
it from my phone, thinking, "Wait, what am I doing? Let me."
Right.
See, now
this
Instagram
down.
is a topic for a show by itself.
I'm sure it is.
Because I find it very cumbersome to use.
You don't use
Yeah, I do.
nothing. Like,
Do you
Yeah,
use
that's
it?
my
Good
that's my
for
favorite.
you.
I use very little.
Well, things
social media.
disappear and you say, okay, so-and-so, and then you look and it's not there.
Oh, and then it's not
Yeah.
there. But that's the point. They
Yeah,
want to
that's
keep
the
you
point.
just going.
But that's the point.
The rabbit hole. Uh-huh.
I want to be mindful of what I'm looking at and it's not there.
Absolutely.
Well, there you go.
But it's like it's habit. It's that
It is. No, it's
so then
literally
the
habit.
effort it's
Yeah.
taking is to break a habit,
Yes.
which is the
Hard is hard.
hardest part.
Correct.
Even if it's a good habit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
We're talking mindfulness and whatnot, but let's back up a step here and talk a little bit about speech therapy
Yeah.
and swallowing,
Yeah.
which is what eventually will lead that into those issues.
Yeah.
That I think we all take for granted the fact that we can swallow and then we're here to talking.
Mhm.
But a lot of people don't have that luxury.
Yeah.
How about giving us an overview of the biggest problem you see
Mhm.
that people have as far as speech
Sure.
and or swallowing if they go together?
Sure.
Yeah.
So just general aging alone, we do start to see some cognitive differences, some differences in memories and things like that. But I do also work a lot with people who have had strokes and a lot of people who have Parkinson's. And Parkinson's, specifically affects our dopamine receptors, and it affects our motivation, and it affects those things. And same thing for a lot of people who have had strokes, things that have been automatic our whole lives, like swallowing, like walking, like
Right.
talking, like just thinking about what we want to say and having the words actually come out. We
Yeah.
don't think about any of that. It just
Yeah.
happens. But after you've suffered a neurological event, a stroke, Parkinson's, another progressive neurological disease, ALS and Huntington's disease, these things are affected. That part of the brain that controls these automatic functions has been affected. So when people come to therapy, they're regaining those skills that they once had, but it's different now, and you
Yeah.
brought up habits, Paula. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I talk, the way we talk is a habit, the way we eat is a habit,
Okay,
and
okay.
changing that is hard,
Yeah.
especially when there's been, brain injury. So bringing mindfulness back into that is so important because these things that have been automatic now need to be conscious. So something as simple as I put food in my mouth and I swallow it. I don't think about it. I just do it.
Yeah.
If you ask me how many times did I swallow to get that little
Right.
piece of food down, I don't know. It went down, right?
Right.
But that changes when there has been some, impacts to the brain or these automatic functions. So it's really bringing awareness into from the very start. Our digestion also starts from when we start smelling the food, from when we look at the food, especially for some of our seniors who do have some more cognitive differences like dementia and Alzheimer's and loss of smell comes into play here too. But we look at our food and we eat with our eyes before we eat with our stomach. So just something as simple as that's the first step, looking at the food, thinking about what it looks like, smelling it, bringing it to the lips, all of these processes now are conscious. And we go through all of them and I'll have patients close their eyes and walk me through it. How does it feel when you eat? What do we actually do? We use our tongue to push the food back. We have to engage these muscles to trigger the swallow. All of these things that we really take for granted, we bring back into mindfulness. We'll write it down. We'll talk about it. We'll have images where we look at it and really go through it. And that's specific to more to swallowing, but same thing with our cognitive functions and specifically with voice also. I'll have someone who there's something called muscle tension dysphonia or spasmodic dysphonia. And that has to do with some really, really tight tension. So the voice kind of comes out and it sounds really strange, So again, it's bringing mindfulness, bringing awareness into how do I speak? What do I do when I talk? I need to use my breath support. And if I'm not using my breath support and I keep talking and I don't take a breath, my voice ends up sounding like this.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I do breathe. And when I want to speak loud, I sit up straight.
Right.
I take a deep breath. Again, all things we take for granted.
Right.
And we have to really break it down to bring mindfulness into those specific steps to
Makes so much sense though. When you
function.
Unfortunately, I do have a friend who had a stroke who's now in a place over in Glen Cove, skilled nursing facility, who did go through extensive therapy, but still can't speak. So, I guess what I'm saying, I'm not trying to be negative about it. I'm just saying that she tried, but just can't. But what I'm pointing out is the fact that it's worth the effort because she is so frustrated about the fact that she can't get out what is going on up here. You can't tell people what you're thinking.
Yeah.
And that's a very frustrating thing, which you must deal with.
Yeah.
The mental anguish that's caused when you can't speak properly.
It's very hard, and this has come up recently because I do have a few patients who have had strokes who have what's called Broca's aphasia when their receptive language is good and they know what's going on, but it's just those connectors that connect to the brain that enable us to get that word out. And some people have a scripted word, sometimes it's curses, sometimes it's just that one kind of scripted language that they can actually produce. And to them it's meaningful, but to us it doesn't give there's no function to that language. And there are some different approaches. There are communication devices like an iPad where sometimes people can select, to help them speak and get that language out. But it's really frustrating. And a lot of these people do suffer, obviously, from depression, right? So it's come up recently to how can we get these people kind of support in terms of even talk therapy and working with a psychotherapist to communicate, but you need someone that's skilled, that's able to, read between the lines and pick up on their gestures and
It's so
listen to them and
isolating.
listen to
Oh
them.
my gosh, it's so isolating.
Yeah.
Think about it.
That's the way I view it for her.
Did anyone ever read or watch the movie The Diving Bell and the Butterfly?
No.
A while ago. It was a
It's
while ago, right?
Good one, and it's a
Yeah.
tearjerker. Yeah, The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, and it's about a gentleman who had an accident, brain injury, and he has what they call locked-in syndrome. So he can understand absolutely everything, but he can't speak and he can't move his body. So he works with a speech therapist who, teaches him to use this blinking system of the alphabet, and she shows him this alphabet, and she goes through the alphabet, and she eventually reorganizes it to sounds that are more frequently used than other ones. And she goes through and he writes a whole book, and that's the book that he writes using
Oh,
eye
wow.
blinks.
Is that the name of the book, Diving Bell?
Yeah, the name of the book and also
And
the
the
movie.
movie,
Mhm.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a good one. But it's extremely, like Paul said, it's extremely isolating.
Yeah.
So how do you if someone comes in right with this and you just break it down with the mindfulness, so you just take them through the steps and meditation, how do you kind of go about that?
Yeah, a lot of times we'll start with breathing, and I'll
Yeah,
say, and we
breathing.
can all do it right now. Take a deep breath. Have you taken a deep breath yet today?
Yes, I actually did.
Good. Tell me about it. Otto.
Listen, I don't want to get the
That's the
gold
truth.
star. He's like, yes, Mariel, I did.
It's the truth. I was in the car driving here.
Yeah.
And we've had some stuff going on, you
Yeah.
know, and it's not life-defying or threatening,
Mhm.
but it's been actively going on. So I said, I'm going to have to calm down a little bit here. All right.
I like that little
I
whistle.
Then you breathe.
I did do some breathing while I was driving.
How'd it
I really
feel? Did it help?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'm sitting here now.
Yeah, you seem calm and relaxed to me. But yeah, and that's our body's natural reaction too. When we feel super stressed or you come home from a long day of work, what do? We sigh, right?
Right. Breathe out.
Mhm.
Our body knows what to do. It's kind of doing that for us. And again, so much research has backed that breathing alone can truly alter your central nervous system. And that's what, our fight and flight response, that's what makes us feel anxious and all those things. So breathing.
Talking breathing, and then we had like stretching and
Yeah.
doing things, whatever. I forget all
Yeah.
the movements, but that
Yeah.
was some of them.
Right.
Yeah, because we carry so much
they
tension.
do.
How do we drive? Like this,
Yeah.
right? We
Yeah.
drive like this. And we're like, oh my
With a nice tight grip.
gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And you don't realize until it says, oh, I need to relax
Yeah.
my shoulders. I need to relax my face.
No, but it's so because it's, all those things, are, back to your mindfulness thing. You actually have to like stop and think about that because the breathing thing, I really try before I do anything in the morning when I get up, and the key word is try, is to take 3 like deep breaths, like before I do like anything. Of course, I get sidetracked half the time, but I really try to do
Yeah,
that. And I
think
think,
about it. That's
yeah,
the
like
first-
just, yeah.
Exactly.
You're thinking about it.
That's
You did
exactly.
it.
Gold star.
Yes, 2 gold stars. Here we go.
But guys, we will get back to breathing because I think that's a very important reminder. After the break, we will continue talking with Mariel Hunerberg, who is the director of speech therapy at Metro Physical and Aquatic Therapy, all about meditation and mindfulness and how it helps in speech therapy. You're listening to Project Independence in You on LIU Public Radio.
So I get this call from my grandma, and she's like,
"What's a podcast and how much does it cost?"
so I tell her, podcasts are like radio shows, but you can download them on any device and listen to them anywhere at any time, and they're free. And then she says,
I see, but where can you find good ones?
and I'm like, go to wcwp.org/podcast and check out the lineup of original shows, or download any podcast app on your phone or tablet and search for LIU Studios. And she's all like,
Oh, that sounds easy.
and then she asked me what an app is.
LIU Studios podcasts, available on any podcast app. Those little button things on your phone screen. Just ask your grandkids.
Welcome back to Project Independence in You on LIU Public Radio. I'm your host, Kristina Liu, along with my co-hosts, Paula Ewell and Otto Los. And we're jumping right back in with Mariel Hunerberg, who is the director of speech therapy at Metro Physical and Aquatic Therapy. And we're talking about meditation and mindfulness and how it helps in speech therapy and overall life. And I'm going to take a breath, that. But
I have a stuttering problem. All right. How would you apply mindfulness to that? Like if you had specific problems, how do you apply it? How would it work?
Yeah, great question. So we do use mindfulness a lot for stuttering and fluency disorders. And a lot of times it's like we talked about when you brought up before, sometimes you drive somewhere and you don't know how you got there, right? And that's related to something that's called meta-awareness. So that's our kind of awareness of our awareness. And same thing for the way that we speak. So whether it's a fluency disorder or a voice disorder, we need to be more aware of the way that we're speaking. So the first step is to kind of acknowledge what's going wrong. So for stuttering, there can be a lot of differences. There's something called a block where we're talking and we stop just like that. There can be, a repetition where I'm starting to say a word.
Right.
So the first thing is that meta-awareness, bringing it down to, are there specific words? Sometimes there are specific sounds that people do stutter more frequently on. Maybe it's only S's, maybe it's only W's. So bringing that meta-awareness, that awareness to where is this breakdown? And now, what is my strategy that I'm going to use to try to ameliorate it? So am I going to take a deep breath? And that's what we do a lot of times. So bringing that awareness, I know there's an S coming up, and this is a lot to think about,
Yeah, right.
especially if you're thinking about the
Right.
integrity of your message, what you're actually
Right.
trying to say, and the point you're trying to get across. So bringing that awareness into that moment, and okay, every time I know that's coming, I'm going to stop and I'm going to take a deep breath. So that block, we might not get rid of it completely because sometimes, unfortunately, we're not
Yeah,
magicians.
right,
We don't
right,
have magic
yeah.
wands, and we can't just get rid of everything. We can't make someone talk that had a massive, massive stroke, but we can try to develop some kind of compensatory strategies that they can use. So maybe when they know that block is coming, instead, they're going to take a deep breath, and it's not going to look super weird. They're not like making it so, exuberant, but it's different. It's kind of changing it. So instead of that block, now they're taking a deep breath. So it's a little bit more socially acceptable. For conversation.
Yeah, and like less embarrassing for them, probably. It's like because like as opposed to it's like then you start like developing this habit, right? And like that's
there's something that can help.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't help every time.
Yeah.
Your brain is saying, "Oh, if I take a breath, I'll have an easier time with this." So it calms down that fear that is it going to come out the right way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have another friend. I have two friends.
I was like, I got a lot of friends.
Who went through paralyzed vocal cords, all right, and has gone through several surgeries and has gone through 2 times 8-week sessions of speech therapy. And he did say to me, and I asked him because I knew we were going to talk on the show, that the therapy helped him more than the surgery.
I'm sure.
Right? How would you apply mindfulness and or meditation to that kind of scenario? Like he can speak, but he can't speak very loud, and they're talking to him about possibly another surgery. And what was the reasoning? They're trying to put the vocal cords closer together with some kind of an implant.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he's been through the hoops. And
Did he have a stroke? How were they paralyzed?
No, and that's the thing that frustrates him. He's asked people, how does this happen?
Yeah.
And it started about 5 years ago. And there's anybody really able to tell him how.
It was just a gradual change kind of a thing.
Interesting. Sometimes you see it, you can see it after a stroke, you can see it after sometimes a surgery that's done near the neck, because sometimes the surgeon will nick a nerve that innervates the mobility of the vocal cords. So they can be paralyzed in a number of different ways. It sounds like both of his are in the open position. Sometimes they're paralyzed in the closed position. Sometimes one is just paralyzed. So, that's important.
That's what he had. One was paralyzed.
One in the open position.
Yeah, and then they did something, and I'm not a that doctor.
Yeah.
But they did something on the second surgery to try to move them closer together. And now they want to do another one. And he's wrestling with this. I happen to bowl with this guy.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know if he's going to do the third surgery, or would he try more speech therapy?
Sometimes they'll do Botox, which is a little bit lesser. It's not a full surgery, but they'll do the, it sounds kind of gross and weird. They do it right through the neck to give it a little push, and that'll kind of help it over. It depends the severity, and, everything comes down to our quality of life, right? How much is this affecting my quality of life? Is he able to talk on the phone? Does he work? Does he volunteer? Does he do something that requires him to use his voice a lot? There's a lot of factors that, you have to weigh your risks and benefits when considering any type of surgery, right? But for mindfulness is huge for voice therapy, and we see it so frequently because, we're coming back to habits, like Paula said, and the way we talk is a habit, right?
Well, let's use this person as an example. I mean, I realize you don't know all the details. You don't know the person.
Yeah.
But theoretically, how would you say to somebody who had been through that, how would you tell me, if it were me, to use mindfulness or meditation?
Yep. So our breath is so important in the way that we speak. Without our breath, we got nothing. We got no voice. Our breath is that air that comes up is our vocal folds kind of sit next to each other, and they move in this rhythmic pattern. So that's what produces our voice. And the reason that they move is because the air is pushing up on them. So they're moving that way. Without that air, they're not moving. If one's paralyzed, one's not moving anyway. But the more air that we can get, the more kind of pressure that we can put there to produce some sort of sound, right? And we have different structures that produce sound. We have our cheeks, we have our lips, and that's called our resonance, right? It's the same thing when we're in a room. We talk a lot about, especially when you're doing recordings and things, about kind of how sound sounds in different places. So think of kind of our oral cavity as a church, or as some sort of temple, some sort of big open space that really can produce that sound. So for him, it's really being mindful of, am I using these other muscles because my vocal cord is not
Yeah.
working. It's not helping me. There's nothing I can physically do to move that. It's paralyzed. But what else can I do to kind of get that sound out? So really being mindful of, am I using my oral cavity, my mouth as that cathedral, as that space to make that sound? Because I can't use this right now. I can use some of my breath and I can use some of these structures up here, but I can't use this. So being mindful of, do I feel that sensation, and practicing it, practicing singing, doing his ahs. We love our ahs in speech therapy, and feeling, do I feel that sensation there? Closing my eyes. What does it feel like? Do I feel vibration here? Do I feel it in my nose? Do I feel it in my lips? Do I feel it in my throat? Where do I feel that? And really practicing deep breathing. The more power, the better lung support and breath support he has, the louder his voice will be.
Good.
There's
Yeah.
a golden nugget for you.
Yeah.
Now, you said something about singing. Is singing a form of therapy?
Yeah. So
Even if you can't sing?
doesn't matter. I
In the
can't sing either.
shower,
And I
so
do it a
not
lot.
shouting.
Huh?
No one
Yeah,
has
we
to
all
hear
sound
you.
better in the shower. There we go. Talking about sound, right?
Right.
How it reverberates in
Yeah,
space.
I think I can sing until I hear myself.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. But yeah, singing is definitely therapeutic as well. And I mean, in many ways. So for voice specifically, it's teaching us to use our breath, because when we sing, we don't realize it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but we're really breathing differently. And that's why laughing too is a really, really good exercise that works on breathing. We don't think about it, but when you have a deep, deep
Yeah.
belly breath and you're out of breath
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
when you
We
have a good laugh.
At,
Is that
Yeah.
yoga,
They-
laughing,
The laughing yoga.
laughing yoga or
they
whatever
come,
it's
we
called?
hear it
Yeah.
in our office. They do it all
Yeah.
together.
Yep.
Wow.
Well,
Yeah.
you ever watch,
wi-
like,
it's
every
wild.
now and then there's a
Great to
good,
hear. It's really nice to
Laughing
hear.
yoga is fun.
Yeah.
every now and then there's a good ad on television that's funny. And you start to laugh with the ad,
Right.
Yeah.
which is a nice change.
Yeah, it is. Right. It's not medication or illness. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
so
And
true.
you feel better after a good laugh, right? Something in you just feels kind of different.
Well, that's true.
Something is released.
Mhm.
It's like something is.
No, and I always remember, because we actually had that topic on the show, the laughter
I love
yoga,
that.
and what always stuck with me was they were saying, like, that you have the ability to, like, trick your brain.
Mhm.
So, like, if you're smiling when you're sad, you could actually make your brain think, like, okay, like, well, you're happy, so it's something that really sticks with me, that I've
Yeah.
actually tried, that it really does truly
Yeah.
work. So
Fake
I
it till
do-
you make
yeah,
it.
right.
You trick, because those
Absolutely.
like you said,
Right,
you
yeah.
truly are
Right,
releasing
right.
endorphins that
Right,
way, whether
right.
it's real or not.
Right.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
very
like golf, and one of the guys I golf with always, when we get into this funk where we can't hit the ball or whatever, he's always using the line, "A mind is a terrible thing."
Mine is a terrible thing to waste.
Yeah, because you can't hit the ball, you can hit it, but it doesn't go where you want it to.
Yeah.
well, and then you just gotta laugh, right? And there you go.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's how it
we
goes.
have learned by now that the PGA Tour is long off the list.
But Mariel, when you're evaluating someone, are you pretty much, is just one of your starting points like,
Yeah.
let's start by learning to be mindful? Like, is that part of the initial?
Well, I got to check the vibe for people, because
Yeah.
some people are not
I'm not gonna be into
into
that.
this.
This, right?
And they're coming to me for a service. They're
Yeah.
expecting
Yeah.
speech therapy as a
Mhm.
speech and language pathologist, which I will provide.
Mhm.
And if I see that someone, and I'll mention it, and sometimes I'll mention my background, that I am trained in this. I am a yoga teacher. I do these things, for pleasure, obviously. These are things we can incorporate. I have one of those, I should have brought it. It's called a Hoberman sphere. And it's one of those like little plastic balls that kind of crunches up when you bring it together and then opens
Yes.
up, and it's empty
Oh, yes,
inside.
yes.
And I'll pull that out sometimes, or I'll have it out and someone might ask me about it. And I'll say, oh, okay, let's practice some breathing doing that, and you pretend that's your lungs.
Mhm.
That's great.
And people really say, oh yeah, I don't realize that there
Right.
is a full expansion when we
Right.
take a deep breath, and
Right.
rarely do that. Our breathing is so shallow throughout the day that's why when we took that deep breath before, have you taken a deep breath today besides Otto?
Yeah.
I'm not
I knew right
sure.
away. No.
Yeah.
Like
Because
you
that
feel
was
what you feel it.
different.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So, I'll bring it up. And if people are like, I really don't want to do that, I'll let it, we'll table it. And if they bring it back up, then great. But a lot of times people are pretty receptive to it, especially if I get down to the kind of sciencey part of it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is exactly how we use it. And this is the research behind
Right.
it. It's not just some woo-woo
Right.
rap that I'm pulling out of,
And the question I just thought about on my own self here is, how deep was my breath? Did I really, or did I just go?
Yeah.
And I think I just went,
Maybe.
Oh,
Okay.
Well, Yeah.
So sometimes, especially if people can't figure out, am I taking a deep breath? Was that good? I'll have people bring their shoulders up to their ears when they breathe in.
Yeah.
And then totally exhale, sigh, and let everything fall so heavy.
Yeah, see, I didn't do
This
It
is
feels so
yoga.
good. It
Yeah.
really does feel good. Like when you actually.
Mine was a medium breath.
Well, now you know.
Medium breath. Now you know. There's your meta awareness.
Well, now when you get back in the car after the show, I expect to do a full deep breath. Yeah.
No, but
Yep.
there's a lot to be said for it. You hear it all the time.
Yeah.
Golden nuggets,
Right.
breathing, hydration,
Yep.
you know,
Yeah,
stretching.
free
Yeah.
things, right? That are accessible to us anytime.
And I think all of us probably need a little memory jog occasionally that these things exist.
Yeah.
You know, like
Absolutely.
mindfulness.
Of course.
You can be on a roll where you're mindful.
And you're mindless for a long
Yeah,
time.
the next thing you know,
You
you
get stressed out and boom, it goes right out the window.
okay.
Right?
Yeah.
No, it's true.
For all of us, people that are masters in this
Yeah.
stuff struggle with that, and that's the practice.
Yeah, you
of
have
it,
to be
right?
mindful of mindfulness, you know? It's
well,
one
I
of
think,
those.
what was the wording you have to be aware of awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
aware
for
of
real.
yes, that's a huge part of it. And you know,
That was a
there's
golden
You have
nugget.
to
I
be
just-
aware to
Yeah.
start.
Yeah.
First, you have to be aware.
yeah,
First, you
Yeah.
got to be aware. Then you
Right.
got to be aware of what? You got to be aware of
We're
awareness.
being aware.
right. And sometimes we need like not a scare into
reminder.
it, but there's so much research too now that being mindful and meditating, and we'll put meditating, you don't have to fully meditate, but being more mindful about things can truly change our brains. We have so much neuroplasticity in our brains that we're able to make changes no matter what age we are, and we can make these changes. And there's these studies that people who are mindful and meditate have an age of their brain that's 7 years younger than people that
Wow.
don't.
Wow.
You know, it's interesting. We've talked a lot about mindfulness with a lot of people. And when you think about it, it made me much more conscious of the moment I'm in,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, that's mindful.
Because like we're thinking about
point.
what you're going to do and what you did and this and that. But the bottom line is this is it. You know,
This moment now.
Yeah.
right,
this moment
second, right.
now, the moment when you walked in the door is gone.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's where anxiety and depression
Yeah.
lie. Thinking about the past, being nervous about the future, that's what not in the present moment.
Mhm.
They're elsewhere.
well, there's a 3-day week. Yesterday, can't do anything about. Tomorrow, you're really not too sure. So the only one left is today.
Yeah.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and you really have to talk to yourself. I mean, I don't think any of us are saying we hop out of bed in the morning and everything is like,
I do. The birds are chirping. It's a full Disney movie.
Uh-huh.
No, but I think like, and that's why they call it, like a practice,
Mhm.
like mindfulness practice, meditation practice, because you really do have to practice it. But, and I think, I'm glad you addressed it. Some people, think of it as like this, out there kind of conversation, but, even just speaking with you, and I know all this, it's a further thing that, the science behind it and the benefits. And you think about, when you just take a moment to think about, these kind of things that are going, you become more in tune with yourself. And I think it's just so huge, and Otto was saying, mindfulness is a topic that comes up no matter what topic we're talking
Right,
about.
comes up.
Somehow mindfulness can be part of it,
Yeah.
whether it's dealing with, eating or, or whatever it is. There's so many different things that
yeah,
I
how
think are
many
important.
years ago did you really not hear that word?
Yeah.
Oh, not at all.
course.
You would hear focus.
Right.
Attention,
Concentration.
concentration.
Yeah, it's a different word, but
Yeah.
it really means the same thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know,
I have a
concentrating on what you're doing or focusing on what you're doing.
Totally.
Is there any type of nutritional advice you have for your voice? And what would you say that like, is tea better if you're not, is there anything
Yeah.
that like, does drinking tea with honey,
no,
does that
yeah.
really help?
Good
What
question.
would you
Absolutely. So
suggest?
hydration, number one, and you brought up before, right?
we go
These
about it.
free things that we get, these little nuggets of hydration is huge.
Mhm.
Our vocal cords, like I said, are these little pink structures of tissue that move in this nice rhythmic pattern. And think about, the shores of the beach or something like that. When something gets dry, it gets cracked, it gets dry, and it doesn't move, right? It's just there. When things are moist and supple and they can move really nicely. So hydration is huge. Many people do not drink enough water for many reasons. So being mindful of water,
Right,
right? Our
right.
awareness of
Right.
drinking
It's a
water.
number one up all.
Well, every time,
Yeah,
right?
I know.
But yeah, it's huge, and we don't. But drinking tea is good too. Not as a replacement for water. Some
Right.
people will say, "Oh, I drank my coffee. I had my tea at the end of the day, and
Right.
maybe I had 4 ounces, 8 ounces of water when I took my pills or
Right,
whatever."
right.
But you really need water throughout the day, and those other things are fine too. Coffee, anything with caffeine is drying to the vocal cords. So for someone maybe that has reflux, I would recommend kind of avoiding caffeine as much as you can, and really trying to replace that with water. And same thing for kind of a reflux protocol, all those foods that like chocolate we love, right?
right.
But not so great for us. Orange juice and tomatoes, tomato
Right.
sauce, things that are kind of acidic. Yeah, those can irritate our vocal, our vocal tract and our vocal cords. So being mindful of that, especially if you're more predisposed to that, if you do have reflux or
Right.
something like that going on. But hydration is key. But honey is good too. Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you maybe had laryngitis, you were recently sick, and you feel that you need a little extra care there. Adding some honey into your tea is great.
How about spicy food?
So that's a big one too for reflux hygiene and vocal hygiene. It's a big no-no.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's irritating. We think even how it
Well,
feels in our
it's-
mouth. So
When your eyeballs have tears coming out,
yeah, that's too much. That's too much.
you know it's spicy.
Yep. That lets you know
I know, it's like so many things that I just love,
the good stuff.
coffee, spicy chocolate, it's really,
Terminology. Oh, we can almost
no, okay, it's fine.
we can get into is speech therapy and speech pathology. I read in some of the notes.
Well, that's a perfect cliffhanger
Yeah.
because after the break, we will continue talking with Mariel Hunerberg, who's the director of speech therapy at Metro Physical and Aquatic Therapy, all about meditation and mindfulness and how it helps in speech therapy. You're listening to Project Independence in You on LIU Public Radio.
Take WCWP with you wherever you go with the WCWP app. Listen live 24/7 to all of our streams, all from one app. Plus, call the studios directly from the app and visit our social media. Download the app through the iOS App Store on Apple devices or the Google Play Store on Android by searching WCWP Radio, or visit WCWP.org for links. The WCWP app, available now on iOS and Android devices.
Welcome back to Project Independence in You on LIU Public Radio. I'm your host, Kristina Liu, along with my co-host, Paula Yule and Otto Los, and we're talking with Mariel Hunerberg, who is the director of speech therapy at Metro Physical and Aquatic Therapy, all about meditation and mindfulness and how it's helpful in speech therapy. So before the break, Otto, I know you left us on a bit of a cliffhanger, so take it away.
But during the break, something did come up that was interesting.
That's right.
And that
Full
was-
track. There you go.
Dan came up with something good.
Yes.
All right.
A
He
golden
has his golden nugget.
Oh yeah.
That you should drink. You don't have to, of course, but it's a good idea to drink water at room temperature out of a cup as opposed to drinking ice water, which would make your vocal cords that are already a little warm
tighten up.
Tighten up.
go in the wrong direction.
Mhm. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's a lot of Chinese medicine beliefs too that cold water is really not good for all our systems in the body.
Well, my husband's gonna love
Yeah.
this
I
because
love
Jay
people. That's great.
hates cold water.
Me
And
too.
it's, oh, if you forget, he's always saying to everyone because everyone's like, "Oh, you don't have like a cold water bottle," and he's like, he works outside. My husband,
Yeah.
just only like will drink, well there, and I could tell him that
There you
he's
go.
ahead of the game.
Yeah,
Right.
Yes.
healthy.
All right. Well, that was the break.
There's the golden
Okay,
nugget.
good.
Go
There you
ahead.
go.
So the question before the break was speech therapy, speech pathology.
Yeah.
What's
So it's more of a technicality. Speech and language pathology is what we're licensed in. That's what our license said, speech and language pathology. Over time, people call it speech therapy because it's shorter,
Right,
it's
right,
easier to
right.
say. But it is that we do use them interchangeably. But, people say a lot of times, oh, speech therapy, I speak just fine. But then when we open up to speech and language pathology, it kind of encompasses really a broader range of modalities that we work on, including voice and language, cognition, memory, executive functions, all those other things that fall into that kind of wide area.
well, let's differentiate speech and language. Like,
Yeah. So our speech is the way we speak. So maybe we're working with kids who have an articulation error. They can't pronounce their S's or their L's sound strange, or someone who had a stroke that now has kind of a slurred speech. That's more of our speech component. And then our language which is, really a different side of our brain. So that's why sometimes people who do have a stroke, you see sometimes their speech sounds great or they have a facial paralysis, but it makes no sense because that opposite side of the brain was affected. So that's the language, left side of the brain language. And that's more of our ability to compromise sentences, speak clearly, word finding, what's that thing called again? That's more of our kind of language component.
Now, you would get involved with the language part of it as well?
Absolutely. Yep.
Sounds to me like that's more complicated than the speech part. But
they can both be complicated, but language has a lot more, nuances to it. The way that we use language, and so that can be cultural, that can be personality wise, the way that we choose to speak, the way we choose to utilize language, the way that we express ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
So not,
It's certainly complicated. And, we've been talking a lot about mindfulness, and obviously meditation gets a little more, practice. So is there any like quick and easy, meditation kind of tricks for everyone?
I'm glad you asked. Yes. So we talked about mindfulness, right? Brushing your teeth, standing in line, those kind of things. One kind of little meditation, a little intro to meditation is a body awareness scan. So when you're laying in bed, sitting in your chair, wherever you want to do it. And if we want to practice for a second, and our listeners at home, feel free to join in.
He's getting loose, Otto.
So that's the first thing is we want to really make sure that our posture is good. So you want your knees directly over your ankles. Your feet are flat on the floor. Your hips are under your shoulders. So you kind of have that one nice straight line there. And you can close your eyes. Some people feel uncomfortable. They might want to just
we all fall asleep.
Look down. You can also just gaze down. That's completely fine too. And you start to think about, and we start down, we'll start at our heads, right? So we'll just do a body awareness scan. So we're going to start to think of the top of our heads. So just bring your awareness to the top of your head, the way that your hair is. Now bring your awareness down to your forehead, the skin of your forehead. Does it feel relaxed? Is there some tension there? And we're not. I know, you broke the spell. Yep. And it's without judgment. Yep. Without judgment, right? We don't want to judge the way our body is, but we're just bringing our awareness to it. And even without judging anything, without changing anything, bringing your awareness might change things. Doing this, you'll notice your breath is going to start to slow down a little bit. Your breaths might get a little bit deeper, and you'll work your way all the way down from your head to your toes. Are my hips sitting back in the chair? Do I have any pain in my knees? Again, we're not judging it. We're not making a story about it. We're just kind of moving on. Are my feet flat on the ground? Do I feel that connection of the earth with my feet? And you can come back to your breath. Am I taking a big deep breath? Not judging it, just watching it, breathing in and fully letting go and letting that exhale out. So that's kind of a nice intro into meditation for people that don't like to meditate or feel like they can't because they feel like, okay, my mind is so empty that it's being filled with other things. This gives it kind of something to do.
Concentrating.
I am a power napper, all right? And
What's your secret? Huh?
well, I remember I used to go to school downtown New York, and I'd come home on the subway when you could come home on the subway. And I remember I would rub my eyes like this, and then I would let my feet, like the rest of my body. I guess I was meditating, not knowing it, but I would wind up taking a nap on the subway. I can do that. I have that skill.
Yeah. Well, maybe that means that you are more mindful about things. Your mind is a little, and not filled with all this.
It's Otto. I mean, just add it to the list of things Otto is great at.
There we go.
Well, I think some of it, you wind up having weird dreams. That's how you kind of, like some of the mindful stuff that is clogged up there.
Clogged up. Yeah, absolutely. And our dreams are how we're processing life, Yeah.
Right.
That probably fits into this whole thing as well. What you're thinking about with your subconscious when you're sleeping. That's a whole nother world which we've never talked about.
It is another world.
Yeah.
But most of us,
your vocal cord health or your speech health.
It's just there.
And it's just what you're saying. You just figure it's just
until you have to.
Yeah. Proactively. Like that's why I was asking. Is there anything, like food or food?
Yeah. Definitely hydration. Definitely we brought up too about kind of nothing super cold, nothing super hot either. And also just general vocal hygiene. So that's not abusing our voice because like I said, these vocal cords move in this nice rhythmic pattern and they flow nicely. But when we're yelling, we're slamming those vocal cords together. together, right? So they can become inflamed, they can become angry, they can become red. So trying not to scream, trying not to, some of us get into a habit of really harsh kind of throat clearing too. So which could be related to reflux or something else. But that can be damaging too, because when we horrible just are hitting together.
Right.
I don't know. And now we're all like,
Where's
now
your
it's
water?
all like in our head.
That wasn't intentional. You go to a sporting event, all right, and people are screaming, or you go to a concert and people are screaming.
Yeah.
And then you end up you're hoarse the next day. That's probably not a good thing.
Yeah, and that's you know, if we want to yell, we need to make sure that we're using our breath support to support that, because if we can project our voice in different ways, and that's a lot what we do in voice therapy is learning how to project our voice in different ways. Same thing with Parkinson's. A lot of times you'll hear people who do have Parkinson's, they speak super, super low. And there's a couple components. There's a perceptual deficit that they don't realize that they're speaking low, but a lot of it comes to do with that, you know, with that breath support, that's how we project our voice. And that's healthy. That's vocal hygiene is learning those strategies. And, you know, especially for people at sporting events and our vocal cords so delicate that if you really have this one big yell, you can actually hit your vocal cords together and create a polyp. And then that's there. And it would need to be removed surgically, you know, to get that away. And that's when you hear somebody that has just a really chronic kind of raspy, kind of hoarse voice, they probably have either a paralyzed vocal cord, a polyp, or nodules, which are kind of smaller polyps, and those can develop over time. So we see those a lot in teachers, in coaches, in people that go to a lot of sporting events, somewhere where you're
I know, because you always
using your
hear
voice.
like with a singer or like, you know, an actor, that they have to go on like vocal rest, you know, and you're always like, what, you know, but it's obviously because of that constant, you know.
Well, I have a big problem with, I used to go to, and I still do, but go to sporting events, all right? And there was nobody there telling you you had to scream up to 110 decibels. If they played well and you thought they did a good job, you know, you would applaud.
You create sound.
But now what they're really doing is they're contributing to hearing and speech problems by telling you to scream up to a certain amount. I never thought about the speech part.
Right, it comes up.
The
It
decibel
comes up on the
meter.
screen.
Yeah.
Oh, get it.
No, it says make some
Yeah.
noise.
Yeah, get it up, get it up louder.
Yeah.
Okay, in the meantime, your hearing is
I was like,
going
you're paralyzing
bad,
your vocal cords.
and your vocal cords are
Yeah.
not doing too good.
It's good business for us.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
well, maybe that's our secret marketing, really.
It's actually a speech therapist doing that.
Yeah, I mean,
No, it's true.
detrimental to health.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And hearing is a big thing too that you absolutely bring up, because that can, you know, the two go hand in hand, anything that's just too loud, but it can be really detrimental. And, you know, I used to lose my voice all the time, especially in college. If we were out at bars, and alcohol is very drying to the vocal cords as
Talk
well.
loud in the bar.
So yeah, you're talking, I'm singing, I'm dancing, you know, all over the place. But my professor, when I was in college, in grad school, actually made me go to voice therapy because she noticed I was losing my voice all the time. So I realized that, and I have asthma too. So there's a component to it that I wasn't using my breath correctly.
Right.
So now whenever
Using
people
up here,
Yeah.
not bringing the whole breath up.
exactly just right here, but we can use here, we can use down here to give this a break.
Yeah.
Right.
Are you already in school speech therapy?
She
So
said,
that-
you can't be a speech therapist that loses her voice. That's a lot.
Like it's
That's not what led you into speech therapy.
No.
You already.
No, that
What
just
made you decide to go into speech therapy?
So I originally wanted to work with kids. And I took a couple classes and I liked the program, and I did they send you out in your externships to start to, you know, practice being in the field. And it was kind of exhausting. And I do work with kids now a little bit, but I have two
I
kids
get it.
of
Listen,
my
I work,
own,
yeah.
and I'm tired, you know, I have enough energy for them and not much more. So I had done one of my externships at the VA hospital in Manhattan, and I did a lot of work with voice, a lot of work with vocal cancer, you know, head and neck cancer. And I really, really loved it, and I
just
found
could
it so
feel it,
interesting.
yeah.
So you do get involved with people. It's not just Parkinson's and strokes, and they could have other medical issues like cancer, like throat cancer.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of things. A lot, you know, and the cancer is, there's so many things that are impacted because everything is so delicate in here, and there's so many of our nerves that run through these structures. So one little thing that goes wrong could affect so much. And that, coming back kind of to the mindfulness piece, is that, you know, we've had someone who had lingual cancer of their tongue that needed a part of their tongue removed. And we use our tongue for a lot. Every single speech sound has such a specific placement. We realize when we're, our R, the back of our tongue comes up when we say and we say the tip of our tongue comes up. Again, we don't think about any of this, but if you're missing a piece of that, you need to think about that. Yeah. How can you compensate for that? And what is it going to sound like if I don't have that physical, anatomy at that point?
Like every time we talk about all these different types of things like this, it really brings to light the fact that you should count your blessings when you have them, because
100%.
these are the things, like I always say, like being able to pick up a piece of paper and separate two pieces of paper. We take that so for granted.
Yeah.
And speech you take for granted. And, be thankful when you have it.
No, and I think it's like, it goes back into like, the proactive things that you can do, to maintain that, right? Like and that's like another word that we're constantly using on the show, like in all areas of life, because it's like, obviously we can't prepare for everything, but if you take these kind of proactive steps, it helps. And I think, with a breathing, I think of as much as we talk about breathing, I know there are times in the day that like I probably haven't. I'm like, did I breathe? Period. Like from it's supposed like from like below. It's all like these like shallow breaths. And I'm like yapping. And it's you're not getting it from below. And I think when you start being mindful and being proactive in these kind of practices, hopefully it just helps you along the way.
Well, here again, young people like young kids, really. I would think things like smoking impacts.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, drying and
right.
So if they're, I don't think about, I never smoke, thank God, but smoking, it does just affect your lungs. It affects a lot of things.
Right, your whole inside.
A lot of, unfortunately, the head and neck cancers are related to people that were, heavy smokers. Yeah. Alcohol abuse too, all that.
Yeah, well, I could see that.
Yeah.
Unless you put honey in, okay.
And drink at room temperature, then it's fine. No, just no ice. Then you're good.
Then it just cancels out. You're totally good.
I'm lucky I got through that part.
Yeah, but I think so. I love that with, and I encourage all of our listeners to try. I'm certainly going to go home and tell people about the intro to meditation, with us.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm going to certainly tell my mom to do that, because she's a person who always says like, I just can't meditate. Like, like she like, and like, so I'm always like, oh, you should try. You should. And she's like, I just can't, like shut my brain off. She's like keep the TV on. There's got to be some kind of like noise, which I'm slightly guilty of.
I think maybe what people have to think, and I feel that way anyhow, is that this is not a rigid approach.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right.
If you can be happy just sort of plopping back and chilling out for 5 minutes, maybe that's your meditation. There's no book that says you have to do it this way.
Right.
I think the point is you just have to take the time to just kind of do nothing.
Right. Be quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A quiet time.
Quiet time.
And just put your awareness into what you're doing, whether that's washing your dishes or eating your food. How many times are we watching TV while we're eating, right? If we're alone, if we're talking to someone, that's different. But if we're alone, we're watching TV, we're scrolling on our phones. But did we even notice how was our food taste? What temperature was it?
Right.
Where
how fast did we eat it?
Right. Yeah. And really being grateful too that we have this food, and where does this food come from? All that stuff is so important.
This is a major contributor to not being mindful.
The biggest one, I think.
Yeah.
Like
and Otto, if you are, listening to us on radio, he held up his phone. I don't,
Yeah, right.
You might be like, what is it? What is the
secret?
Well, we had somebody on the other last week, I guess it was, where, 2 weeks ago, where kids in particular have grown up with this thing almost locked in their hand. All right. And they really don't walk anywhere without the phone. And get text neck, right?
Tech neck, yes, that was our
That was the new buzzword.
Tech neck, right?
So they're not being mindful at all because they have no idea what's around them. They could walk into a pole, which they do.
Yeah.
Because they're like, this is their mindfulness is here. It's not on anything outside of that. And we even get caught up in that.
Absolutely. I'm totally
I
guilty.
do.
Yeah.
This is a very addictive
It's
item.
neat that way. Yeah.
I was just speaking with my mom actually yesterday about it, because we were saying, with the phones, like you're losing so much of like your thinking ability of things because
Mm-hmm.
you know back and I remember my mom and I used to watch a show. It's like, why do I know that person? What were they in?
Right.
How old were they? These are like the questions that always pop in our head. And before this, you'd be like, oh yeah. So, and I try to actively do that because your instinct is to pick up the phone
And look it up.
type in the name. And you don't even need to
Look it
find
up,
too much
right.
details. It's like, who was that guy in that show?
right.
You could like make, and then all of a sudden it pops up. So you're not using that part of your brain where you're trying to piece these things together, and it's something that I actively try to do because it's like I immediately am like, we'll grab the phone. I'm like, no, let me just try and work
Right.
through this. And when we're talking, my friends were all who's that person? What was it? And like and like so, and I was like, let's just play this game without our phone and
Right.
try and figure it out.
One
We'll
person
work
gets the
together.
one name,
Yes,
the other one gets the
that's,
last
that's
name. But like,
literally
that
my friend group,
right.
and I was like, see guys, we came to this all
We did
together.
it without the
Yes,
help of
right.
technology, where our brains still work.
Right. Absolutely. But Mariel, what is the best contact number for you if someone wants to get in contact?
Yes, 516
Okay.
698 8617. That's my work cell phone. So anyone can call me, can text me if you want to practice a little meditation, mindfulness.
Yeah,
Please
well,
do it.
Mariel, I just cannot thank you enough. It was such wonderful information. I have a lot of golden nuggets that I love to share with my whole family when I get home. So I'd like to thank our guest today, Mariel Hunerberg, for all this wonderful information. I'd like to thank everyone who has joined us. You're listening to Project Independence and You on LIU Public Radio.